Welcome back to the Badger247 show, part of the 247 Sports Network. I'm Matt Perkins, joined once again by Badger247.com writers John McNamara and Nick Osen. Great to see both of you guys, as always. We're the day before Wisconsin's final open practice to the media, which should be some sort of scrimmage and a lot of fun here on Saturday. But Nick, I want to start by just talking about what you've seen this week leading up to the final time you guys will be able to see them before the opening game kickoff on the 28th. So who, or I should say, what position group has stood out to you the most this week?
Yeah, Perko, always good to be back. If it's okay, I'm going to cheat it a little bit and give two. I think one is a smaller group, though, obviously. I would say the specialists, specifically the kickers. I actually think that competition, and I've said it a few times, even in some writing, it is a legitimate one. Now, I probably would expect Bakos to maybe win that just because he's been around, familiarity, things like that, and then potentially redshirt Lam. But from what we have seen, and we can't speak on exact numbers, but just what we've seen with our own eyes, guys, that's been really close. And then Perko, I wanted to also shout out, I would say the inside linebackers. Now it helps obviously to put kind of a spotlight on the guys when we talk with them, and we got to speak with them this week. But Christian Allegro has been bumping in and out at times, and just kind of nursing some things, but he has been terrific. I think he really is going to put it all together this year. Tackett Curtis, obviously healthy, which I got to speak with him too. He's very, very excited. Set a whole new year, whole new Tackett. So that should be intriguing. And then, of course, the storyline we've talked about a lot, but it still rings true. Some of those young guys. Thomas Heiberger, I think, has really emerged the last week or so. Mason Posa, obviously the big-time four-star guy from New Mexico, getting more comfortable. And then Coop Catalano, guys, we've been saying it since the spring, so we look fairly smart there, Perko. But, Mike Tressel said in his presser with us this week that something to the tune of, I definitely anticipate him playing in some fashion. So pretty big news there for a guy that's been in college for 7 months.
Well, he's not the only freshman who is definitely going to be playing this year, because in his press availability today, Jeff Grimes said Eugene Hilton's going to get on the field, basically, John. And I guess it shouldn't come as that big a surprise given everything that we've known about him and seen about him since he was in high school. But still, to crack this very veteran receiver group as a freshman, I think it's going to be a pretty impressive feat nonetheless.
Yeah, without hesitation, Jeff Grimes said, he'll be in the rotation, he'll be playing. So that, that's a no-doubter. And I think it just kind of confirms what the masses have thought about, Eugene Hilton Jr. I think we talked about it last week. There's just, I don't see the scenario where he redshirts or you sit him down. I mean, he's very much in that too deep right now. And I think I turned to Nick today, I said, and Payne, Payne was there too, like week 5, 6, 7, what do Hilton's reps look like? And he's an exciting guy with the ball in his hands, moves really well. But something that Jeff Grimes talked about today was, his blocking and how he's made improvements in that department. And sometimes guys come in as freshmen and they don't think that's part of the job description, but he's taken to that well. But overall, obviously he's proving to be one of Wisconsin's top gets in that 25 class. And I think you're going to see a ton of him this year. And I think, he's just moving in the right direction, Nick.
Yeah, John, I think you said that really well. This went from we don't think he'll redshirt, probably Perko, he's flashing to, one thing I love about Jeff Grimes is he doesn't say things just to say them. And he said today, again, not exact quoting, but I remember distinctly he said one of our best receivers and then basically it wasn't like he just said he's one of our best receivers, but he basically went on, Perko, to describe the roles of a receiver. He's one of our best at running routes. I think he said getting to the spot we need him to, and then going up and making a play. That's 80% of being a wideout. Obviously, I'd give 15% blocking, 5% conditioning. And like John said, he's growing with blocking. I've known this kid for, almost 2.5 years or so. And just meeting him in person 4, 5, 6 times out in Indy, like Zionsville, he is very, very mature. That is not a surprise coming from an NFL superstar, obviously, but he knows, really what is needed in this role, like Max said, and just it's been impressive. I think fans are going to see him maybe even a little earlier than some of the media thought.
Yeah, one more quick nugget from that Grimes receiver talk. He mentioned Chris Brooks Jr. as maybe the top blocking receiver he's been around. And that one, I'm filming. That's one where you kind of lift your head up a little bit and say, oh, I mean, that's pretty significant, right? And that would lead you to believe that you're going to see some Chris Brooks Jr. this year, not just as a blocking guy, but obviously that's where he was mentioned, but as a guy that they're going to get involved in this offense. So I thought that was a nice receiver nugget that Grimes put out there today. And it would lead you to believe that Chris Brooks is going to get some reps in this offense.
Yeah. And getting back to the freshman though, on offense with some injuries to Tucker Ashcraft and other things going on in the tight end room, Nick, we've seen Emmett Bourke getting into the two deep, and he's someone that I remember even back in the winter when Brady Collins was on with me and Bernie, he was the freshman that he called out by name saying, listen, this kid is like a physical specimen already and works his butt off. And, with the tight end room, I don't want to say in flux, but a position that is needed to be addressed for obvious reasons. Is there a chance that we see him getting some reps here at the tight end position this fall?
Yeah, Perko, I would say, just trying to think it kind of who else would be ahead of him. I would say almost 100%, at least not a red shirt, I'd probably say. I'm not going to guarantee what types of reps, but Ashcraft, obviously that's public now, and we'll see kind of how long, that's a legitimate injury. Lance Mason has been terrific, but there are going to be times where you want to see two tight ends, right? And so then it's kind of like Grant Steck and Emmett Bourke, maybe those next two really physical guys. I love what I've seen from Bourke. I saw it in the spring showcase. He moves a little better than expected, super mature. Perko, I'm a fan of his game, man.
Yeah, I'm excited to see just how the tight ends in general look in this offense, because they did not produce in the last couple of seasons. And it's really been since Jake Ferguson probably that the Badgers had a true threat as a receiving option at tight end. I don't know if they'll get that this year, but hopefully at least as a group they can do and be more productive than they have in the past two seasons. Along the offensive line, some of the big questions are going to be, there are three solidified guys there. Who's going to fill in those last two positions of left tackle and right guard? And John, at this point, it seems like it's Emerson Mandel. You can pretty much write it in pen there at right guard.
Likely, right? And especially if Kerry Kadonko is going to take some center snaps, and that position's kind of up in the air, kind of a day-to-day, week-to-week thing. No one's been ruled out of anything. I think we saw a little bit of Kerry today, right, Nick? And we'll see how that position goes. And you talk about left tackle. We've talked about all the different possibilities and all the different combinations it could be. I think I fully expect to see Davis Heinzen out there week one. He's taken the bulk of the reps there. I think it's going to be very much his job to lose, and I think it's very much been that situation since the start of fall camp. So that's my expectation there. And Wisconsin, like I said, is dealing with some injuries on the offensive line. Nothing that seems to be super serious, but they're about to shut things down, and we'll see how it looks in about 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I will just add, Mac, I think that's really well said. Heinzen, I feel like the expectation, I know when I spoke with him, upon committing, was that he was planning on coming in and looking to compete for that job. Now, I think he's earned it. I think he has done well enough to win that. There have been growing moments, and I think you'd agree, Mac, Coach Grimes kind of alluded to it a little bit Friday, that he's been very smart, really hardworking. He's still learning some things. And I think that unit can still be more cohesive. However, it's tough on the guys when a couple of guys are missing time here and there, and there isn't that consistency, especially at the center position, which is generally needed to be one of the most vocal, if not the most, coming from the inside. So ideally for that group, you see Jake Renfro back sooner rather than later. From my understanding, not a ton of long-term concern there, but again, it's still like a week-to-week type of thing, as we were told. So we will see. I think that's a group that there are just such great expectations for. And I feel for them a little bit because there's been big injury in the spring to potentially a couple, more just types of injuries here. So we'll see. The guys that we have seen, I think I'm pretty confident in. I think Mandel, I'd put in Sharpie at this point. Brunner, I'm close to putting in Penn in terms of not a starter, but like, hey, maybe a 3 years and go pro. 3 years, really like not redshirting. He's been terrific. Malman's been solid. So I think it's going to be really intriguing.
Yeah, the right side of that offensive line is going to be very large. That is for sure. Between Malman and Mandel, those two big Minnesota boys have a lot of length and girth between them. But let's flip over to the defensive side of the ball, specifically the defensive line. There just needs to be better defensive line play this year. Full stop. We've talked about this on this show and in many other places. It has been discussed. Been a lot of transfers on the defensive line, Nick. Who has been really making a push, do you think, to probably be on that starting line next to Ben Barton, who we all assume is coming back and will be sort of one of those two starting truly down linemen?
Yeah, Perko, it's a great question. And, I swear I'm not trying to be diplomatic or not answer it. I think that is going to vary. I will say this with that, though. I think the first two that I've seen the most, I would probably say, like, okay, you're going live. Let's just ones go out there. I've probably seen Barton and Suggs. Like, Suggs has come out pretty damn strong this fall. But Perkins was kind of the spring training, spring camp darling. So, like, he's very much in it. Brandon Lane, Perko, has been phenomenal. And I mean that. The last 5 or 6 practices. I was in the spring kind of waiting for him, he was here last year. Let's see what he can do. So those would probably be, some of my top 4. I'm thinking who else is in there. Obviously Parker Peterson. I expect Dylan Johnson to play, but I think those 4 that I said are, probably the top 4 from what we've seen. Barton, I like what you said. He's just kind of this powerful force, that just pride in the program, doesn't really care what he has to do. But yeah, Suggs, Lane can move, guys. Like, he can move better than I thought.
Yeah, I thought Ben Barton had a nice day today, small sample size, in a day where the defense was largely, I'd go as far as to say kind of dominant today. But again, small sample size, quick practice. But that the defensive line is better than last year. Now, how much better is it going to be? I mean, I say that with full confidence, right? I mean, you talked about the guys that they're going to be able to put out there and likely feel very good about that. How much better it's going to be, it's tough to say during fall camp, but the unit, like I said, is without a doubt better, more talented, geared towards what they want to do. How significant of a jump it's going to be kind of remains to be seen, but there's a lot to like there at a position that's traditionally more difficult to recruit. Wisconsin always hasn't had those, top tier guys. I don't know that there's a blue chip day one NFL guy. I mean, I likely guarantee that on this group, but there are bodies there that they're going to be able to rotate, and we'll see what that rotation looks like and what the snaps distribution is going to be, because a guy like Barton's going to be on the field for first and second down. He's not going to be on there for third down. They're going to rotate those guys. I think it's exciting. They're going to have options up front. It's going to be really interesting to see what that looks like, Miami of Ohio and beyond.
Thank you. If I could just add, Perko, thank you, Mac, because I found myself on the boards always saying this group is going to be better, right? I mean, you guys have seen me say it probably 8 times in the last 3 or 4 weeks, and I don't blame the fans, but they ask, how do you know because of what we heard last year? How is it going to translate? I said, I'm not saying these guys, the steel curtain or, the old Vikings line, like just a bunch of Hall of Famers, but they're good football players, very solid rotational players, high motor, pretty egoless in there, and they're all working toward a scheme that I think fits better, Mac. Now, I will say, I'm not saying there's a first-round pick in there, okay? But I will go ahead and say out of that top 8 guys, I wouldn't be shocked if maybe 2 long-term do make the league, even as an undrafted guy. I just know that the Ben Barton I'm seeing, they don't make a lot of guys that large that can move like that. Like, he has had an off season, truthfully, while mixing in some student teaching. I think I saw too, like, super impressive. And I know JVR Suggs and some people close to him from what I had heard last off season believe he could be a pro. Perkins looked like a pro in the spring. So again, these things have to translate to Saturdays and a Thursday, of course. But I will say that, long term.
Well, I think that, you mentioned those third downs, and who is going to be the pass rushers, do you think, Nick, on these third downs? Because I think we know it's probably going to be Peterson and Rieger as the starting edges, or whatever you want to call it, is insofar as I can tell from what I hear. But in those true pass rush situations, who do you imagine is going to be on the field for Wisconsin?
So you mean like more of the interior guys with those guys, right?
Yeah, we're assuming, like who are we going to be looking at? Who is going to be, the closers on this team when, the other team is down late, they're driving, trying to get back, it's a passing situation. Who's going to be out there?
Yeah, if you're looking at an interior D lineman, I like Brandon Lane, to be quite honest. He's massive and can move well. Now it'll be interesting to see if, they try to kind of go with one or two of those big guys, and then maybe you employ like the star position with Aaron Witt. He has shown when healthy a little bit he can get to the passer. We certainly saw it last year in camp. Maybe that's a Nick Clayton addition too, Perko, what you're looking at. But I'd say Lane would be my lock there. And then, frankly, probably Suggs. I know he might be out there 1 and 2, but he has shown me a little bit more. Perkins has had a good camp after an amazing spring. But I think Suggs has really come along strong. That's even where you maybe go with kind of the off-balance pick, who's maybe a little bit not as tall but quicker, in Parker Peterson too.
Yeah, I think it speaks to the amount of combinations that are going to be available to Mike Tressel. There's a lot of different guys, a lot of different body types, and they're going to be able to really employ these guys based on down and distance and situation in a football game. I think one guy that, and I think Nick would agree that it's going to be really hard to take off the field no matter who you're playing or what the down is. Mason Rieger, excuse me. He looks really good, right? And he appears to be healthy. He's moving around. He's doing everything right. And that was kind of confirmed to me today, right? I'm not breaking any news right now, but I mean, to get to see him move around, fly around, he has a chance to improve this defense. I'll just kind of put it at that because I think that everyone wants to see it. Him being healthy, he's missed some time. He's had a little bit of injury history, but where he's at right now, if they can bottle that up and throw that out there on Saturdays and maybe a couple of Thursdays, Nick, he's going to be a really good piece to this defense. If he moves at the direction that this coaching staff thinks he can definitely go to.
Yeah, and I'm happy, Mac, that you saw that, man, because I believe if he plays 8 or 9 games healthy, I think he's hearing his name called by round 4. That is something that I do believe. Because what is a weakness, Perko? He doesn't have one other than availability. Like they say that's the biggest thing at times. So of course you got to be healthy, you got to be able to play, but I've never felt more validated by the eye test when hearing these coaches. These aren't coaches that will just throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks, Fickle, Matt Mitchell, I think it was EJ Whitlow or Tressel, like one of those guys, they couldn't stop smiling talking about this kid. He's about all the right stuff. He's had the journey. You never got to doubt his motor. I've said it. I wrote it yesterday, Perko. I'm sticking to it, man. I mean, he has been the best player on the team at times in camp. Like, I'm not stretching that at all. And I think Max saw it today too.
Yeah. Well, I want to finish off here today, John, by asking you, what are you most looking for in the scrimmage tomorrow, the final time you guys will get to be there in person with the team? Like what on the field are you, most curious about, and do you need to see in order to, sort of have a strong take on the team this season?
Yeah, there's a lot of things, right? I mean, corner comes to mind. Offensive line is a kind of a pressing issue right now to me. I think something that I did see today that I'm really intrigued by, and Wisconsin doesn't want you to go into schemes and specifics, but they're going to get creative with guys like DeKal Crowdis and Tyrell Henry. We saw. Well, Nick has seen it for 15 practices, right? I mean, everything that he's been able to cover, but he got a little bit of taste of it today. Again, it was a quick session, but again, not to, they want to keep things under wraps for good reason. But I think Grimes he has some pieces on that offense to get really creative with. There's a lot of misdirection. There's a lot of movement one way and kick it back the other. they're going to get creative with some of those playmakers on offense, and that's something that I'm looking forward to seeing in the scrimmage. But I mean, there are those traditional. We want to see the offensive line be able to hold up. We want to see. I don't know if we'll see, Billy Edwards Jr. Nick, if I'm being honest with you, likely not tomorrow. I don't want to say he's limited or he's this or he's that, but I guess I don't see him going in a full scrimmage tomorrow, but that's not been reported or confirmed or anything. So maybe you don't get a ton from the quarterbacks. But yeah, it's I think the most pressing thing to me is offensive line and the health of that position, because if they're healthy, I feel good. If they're mismatching some pieces here to get through in the opener and beyond, then I'm a little bit more concerned.
Yeah. I mean, not super surprised, but I agree with Mac. I had one of the same points, Burko. O-line play, I'm looking for cohesiveness. Doing a really nice job in pass pro is what I'm looking for, because I do think they've been pretty damn consistent in the run game. I will also say, I think we maybe see a little bit of QB1 Billy Edwards Jr., and then I'm just looking for maybe extended separation at times from the wideouts on deep patterns. I think that is what I'm really going to be looking for Saturday.
All right. Well, I wish I could be there with you guys for it, but I'm sure you'll have fun nonetheless. Want to thank everyone for tuning in here today to the Badger247 show. Make sure you are subscribed to the website for the best Badger news, information, and message boards anywhere around. Until next time, he's John McNamara. He's Nick Osen. I'm Matt Perkins, and we'll catch you on those message boards.